There we go. Welcome everyone to Family and Consumer Sciences at Home. This is, I think, our 20th session. So, Natalie, you've got the dubious distinction of being our 20th presenter and probably one of our first ones as well. But Natalie is going to be talking to us about World Immunization Week. So I hope that you will, of course, remember to post your name and where you're watching us from in the chat box if you're watching on Zoom, and in the comment box if you're watching on Facebook Live. And also, if you're a first-time viewer, please let us know that just by saying I'm a first-timer or first time or something along those lines. So I am going to turn it over to Natalie with no further ado. And Natalie Jones is our presenter. I think I forgot to announce that.
Yes, can you put on the share screen?
Oh, yes, let me give you permission to do that. Sorry, just a minute. I forget that they changed our rules midway through. Okay. You should be able to now. Is it working?
Yes, perfect.
Okay.
All right, so I'm going to share my screen. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Perfect. So we're going to be going over World Immunization Week, and this is put on by the World Health Organization, which I'm sure a lot of you guys have become a little bit more familiar with throughout this time. So World Immunization Week is really starting for encouraging people to promote and use vaccines, because we know that they protect people of all ages against diseases. And so it takes place in the last week of April, which is this week, so April 24th through the 30th. And every year, millions of lives are saved thanks to immunizations. And it is recognized widely as one of the most successful and cost-effective health interventions. So this I wanted to show you just as a little history is Edward Jenner, and he invented the first ever vaccine. He was part of that collaboration team in 1796. And so he helped develop the smallpox vaccine. The practice of vaccinations was popularized by Jenner, and as you guys know, has since then been used to prevent several different diseases. So I want to just inform and keep in mind that vaccinations are simple, safe, and the most effective way to protect people against harmful diseases. So what is a vaccination? How does it work? So it uses your body's natural defense to build resistance to specific infections and makes your immune system stronger. So vaccines contain only killed or a weakened form of germs like viruses or bacteria, and they do not cause the disease or put you at any risk of its complications. So it's a simple, safe, and effective way to protect your body, to get your immune system ready to fight off a certain infection if you were to be exposed from it. So it keeps you from getting unwell. So this is our body's natural line of defense. So without vaccines, this is what happens. So we have two different forms, two different lines. Our first form is our immune response. So when we get sick, you may see that you start coughing, maybe sneezing, some inflammation, and a fever. So this is a sign that your body is working to fight off a certain infection. So that's a good thing. It's your immune response. So it's working to trap, deter, and get rid the body of threatening things like bacteria. So that's one response. Our second line of defense, just our body's natural, is adaptive immunity. So this is where special cells, so antibodies, are recruited to fight off microbes or that bacteria or those germs, record it, and then now they know how to best fight off those invaders. So this is helpful because then if our bodies see the same pathogen, again, it can't invade the body because our antibodies are able to fight it off and are ready for it. So even with our body's natural line of defense, we are still at risk. So it takes time for our bodies to learn how to respond to pathogens and to build up defense with those antibodies. And also, some bodies are too weak or young to fight off infections when they become invaded and could be at a higher risk of the pathogen if it is severe. So we're kind of seeing that now. We know those higher risk groups for COVID-19. So the ideas of vaccinations is, what if we could prepare the body's immune response? So readying it before someone even gets ill. So this is where vaccines come in. So using the same principle that our own bodies use, scientists create vaccines. So again, they trigger the body's adaptive immune system without exposing humans to the full strength of disease. So that way we already have those antibodies prepared. They recognize the bacteria when it comes into our bodies and that they are ready to fight it off before we get unwell. So vaccines protect us throughout life and at different ages, from birth to childhood, teenagers, and well into old age. So vaccines. This is just how they kind of undergo testing. So to ensure that they are safe and effective, it usually involves thousands of healthy participants. They last for many years and can be followed by constant monitoring by scientists. So most vaccines are given by an injection, but some are given orally, by mouth, or even by a spray into the nose. So some components that you'll see in a vaccine are all natural components. So they either occur naturally in the body, in the environment, or in foods that we eat. So all ingredients in vaccines, as well as the vaccines themselves, go through these multiple phases before they are approved for use. So they are regularly reassessed and being constantly monitored to make sure that they are safe and that there are no health risks for using them. So vaccines protect individuals and communities. This is why it is so important to be vaccinated, because it not only protects you, but it protects others who can't be vaccinated. So without vaccines, we risk illness, disability, or even death from certain diseases like measles, pneumonia, tetanus, and polio, right? And so because we have those vaccines, we know that they work because we aren't seeing those diseases as much anymore. So we know that vaccines save between 2 and 3 million lives every year. So the top 2 reasons to get vaccinated is because we need to protect ourselves and we need to protect others. So not everyone can be vaccinated, like young babies, people who are ill, or even people who have certain allergies. And so they depend on us, on others, to be able to get vaccinated to ensure that they are also safe. So without vaccines, we are at a risk of serious illness, disability, and even death from diseases. So it's important to protect ourselves, but also to protect others. So vaccines work, again, by protecting us against harmful diseases. So they introduce an inactivated form of a germ or a bacteria or a virus into our bodies. They trigger our body's immune system to produce defenses called antibodies. So that's where they train our immune system to create these antibodies to fight off a harmful disease or an infection. And that way, if we are exposed to that germ again, our body's immune system will naturally be ready to fight it off and know how to prevent us from getting sick. So once exposed to a vaccine, 1 or more dose of a vaccine, because some vaccines require 2 doses or even 3 doses of the vaccine, we can be protected against a certain disease for years, decades, or even a lifetime. So that is why vaccines are so effective, because rather than treating a disease after it occurs, vaccines are preventing us in the first place from getting sick. So again, prevention and protecting others, not only ourselves, from being safe from these certain diseases. So I want to bring up this example of why we should be so thankful that we have medical science and that we have vaccinations and that we have teams who are working on creating vaccines, is because thankfully people don't die from polio anymore. So in the 1940s, 500,000 people were paralyzed or died from polio infections. And then because we created a vaccine in 1955, it was nearly eradicated from the earth. And then in 2019, there were only 8 cases. And I want to say that those 8 cases were found in Nigeria, so not even in the United States, but only 8 cases in the entire world. So that is amazing. And these are things that we need to remember, is that this is a continuous process. So when we create such effective solutions, we sometimes forget how serious these problems were because we aren't seeing them anymore. So that brings me to another example that I want to bring up, is US measles case. Is that with more children not being vaccinated or even being vaccinated later than doctors recommend, we're seeing an increase in measles cases. So in 2000, the US measles were declared eliminated, but we have seen a slow rise in US measles cases. So from 2014, there were 600 cases. And then in 2019, the US had 1,282 cases. And this is hard because with the rise of vaccine refusal, our herd immunity is breaking down. So that's where we're protecting other people. And so we forget again how dangerous this disease is and how quickly it can spread. So in some states, more than 90% of children are vaccinated for measles. But in order to have that herd immunity to control the virus, we need to have 95% or above vaccinated. And so right now, the US measles vaccination rate is 91%. So it's not bad, but it could be better. We need to get it up back to that 95%. So these are the states that had measles cases in 2019. So Kentucky is one of those states. And so again, we forget how dangerous these diseases are and how quick they can spread. So it's really important that we, again, keep up with our vaccine and make sure that children are on the right track for staying up to date. So again, I want to reiterate that vaccination is safe and that fewer than 1 in a million experience a reaction in the world. So that's 450 injuries a year in the entire world. So the most common vaccines that we have are measles, tetanus, have been used for decades and millions of people have received them safely. So again, there are some side effects with vaccines or just like any medication. So some are just minor and temporary, maybe redness or arm pain at the injection site, or maybe a mild fever, but they go away on their own within a few days. So just reassure that vaccines are safe and that you are more likely to be seriously injured by a vaccine preventable disease than the actual vaccine. So it's really important, again, to protect ourselves against those certain diseases that could be prevented. So I just loved this quote because this is a quote from a scientific writer who focuses on immunizations, that vaccines are one of the most empathetic things that we can do. It is a system that's based on people voluntarily using their bodies to protect other vulnerable people. And that just hits home right now so much with what is going on and with people practicing social distancing and knowing that by doing this, by being vaccinated, by practicing social distancing and being healthy at home, we are protecting not only ourselves, but the vulnerable people who we love and who we are all there for. So vaccines, again, are just one of the best things that we can do for everyone around us. So that's why I want to bring us to the situation that we are all in now with COVID-19. And one of the biggest concerns from physicians that we are seeing now is a vaccine rate drop. And so not even talking about COVID-19 vaccines, but what kids should be getting regularly vaccinated for, people are not taking them to get vaccinated. So there is hesitancy among that. And so vaccine rates have dropped since the start of the COVID-19. So during the week of April 12th, the number of children who got MMR shots dropped by 40% compared to the week of February 16th, when COVID-19 was not widespread yet. So again, obviously there is some hesitancy with people, but I want to encourage that it is so important to keep our kids on schedule, because we may be creating another public health problem while we're in the midst of trying to manage this current problem. So a question that some of you may have is, should my child still get routine vaccines during the COVID-19 pandemic? Short answer is yes. Try to get your child vaccinated where services are available, and ask your physician or your healthcare provider. So it's really important, again, to still get routine vaccines, because children and babies need to stay up to date. Again, if they're receiving maybe the second dose of a vaccine. And then to know that doctors have made accommodations in their offices to minimize the risk of catching COVID-19 of this virus. So when that way, you keep your kids up to date, when children can return from playing and interacting with other children, when we aren't practicing social distancing, they will have protection from these other diseases as well. So it's really important, again, that we stay on schedule, because we don't want to create another public health problem while we're trying to manage this current problem. So I want to go over the new CDC precautions that they have put out for healthcare providers. And some of you know that in Kentucky, Andy Bashir, that some healthcare clinics have started opening up again this past Monday. So these are some of the things that they are working on, and some of the new precautions that you can still stay up to date with your vaccines. So one of the things that they're doing is scheduling well visits in the morning. So you could go get your vaccine in the morning, and then sick visits are for the afternoon. They're also splitting areas of clinics so that patients who are sick are treated in a different part of the practice than patients coming in for well visits. They're asking people to call and wait in their cars. So you're not coming into the waiting room. You're only coming in when they're ready for you, quick in and out. Also staggering appointment times so that people aren't clustered together, again, keeping our social distance. And then even administering vaccines in the parking lot. So you don't need to go in, you can just stay outside. And so I actually found this quite ironic, is that one of my friends actually just posted a picture yesterday of her daughter getting her regular allergy shot. So not a vaccine per se of preventing diseases, but a routine allergy shot that she gets. And the waiting room was her car. And then just her daughter went into the little breezeway and got her allergy shot right there in the breezeway, and then came back to the car. So again, it's still possible. Limiting, again, interaction and social distancing and keeping it safe. So these are the new CDC precautions for healthcare providers. So it's really important that you double check and make sure that you keep your child up to date on their vaccines. And if you are unsure whether your immunization service is still running as usual, call. So double check, see if you can wait in the parking lot and then have your child go in to the breezeway, or if they can do it in the parking lot, or if you need to schedule a visit. So really, I just encourage you to call your healthcare provider to get those questions answered. I wanted to show just briefly, so this is on the CDC website, the next two slides that I'm going to show you. I'm not going to go into detail about these, but I just wanted to show you. This is from birth to 6 years, what the CDC recommends that children get for vaccines. So again, you can talk to your healthcare provider about where you are with your child and where vaccines need to be taken place. So this is for birth to 6 years. And then this next slide shows from 7 years to 18 years. So where people should be. And again, recommend you talking to your healthcare provider about where you are and where your child should be. So the good news is, if all of that looked overwhelming and you feel like you have fallen behind, or maybe you have been hesitant to keep your child vaccinated during this time, the good news is that the CDC has offered a catch-up immunization schedule for children who start late or who are more than 1 month behind. And so this is perfect, and that your healthcare provider has access to this catch-up schedule. So if you feel like you are behind or have been overwhelmed with everything going on, and you think that your immunization schedule has lagged a little bit, that's okay. Again, talk to your child's doctor or nurse about the vaccines that they recommend for their age, and find out the next best steps to take in order to get back on track for your immunization schedule. So vaccines have been a hot topic for a lot of people. And one of the things that I know it's been a roller coaster of emotions for everyone during the COVID-19 outbreak. But I do hope that we can learn from this outbreak, and that we can really see a positive in public health and preventative healthcare take place. And so some of the things that I think that we can learn from this outbreak is the value of vaccines. So it is so important and crucial, and we are seeing that right now in real time, that when vaccines are available for a disease, it is so important that we get vaccinated and that we stay up to date with our vaccination records. Because without protection from vaccines, like we're seeing now, disease can spread quickly and can have terrible consequences for everyone. And so we are so fortunate to have the protection of vaccines from certain diseases. And it is so important that we protect ourselves and protect others by getting regularly vaccinated or staying up to date with our vaccines. So it is so important. And so I think that that is one positive that we can take away from this COVID-19, is truly recognizing the value of vaccines and why they are so important for the health of our communities, of our state, of our nation, and of our world. Because we are just seeing how fast, with our interconnected with flights, how fast these diseases can spread. And so with that, I want you just to keep in mind again that we need to keep kids on their regular schedule, because we don't want to create another public health problem. And the World Health Organization recognizes that. And so one of their doctors, Dr. O'Brien, who's the director of immunization and vaccines at the World Health Organization, has stated that the HWO is working constantly with partners and scientists to accelerate vaccine development of COVID-19, but we must also ensure that people are protected against those diseases for which vaccines already exist. So we really want to keep in mind prevention of all diseases right now where we already have vaccines, and how important it is that we keep up to date and keep getting those follow-up shots if needed. So I want to leave you with this. We'll have some time for questions, but I want to leave with this of, I hope that this intrigued you to stay curious. I know that there are a lot of questions about vaccines and specific details about vaccines. And so have that conversation with your healthcare provider about vaccines, about immunizations, about anything that you are concerned about, because it's good to stay curious and to be a part of your healthcare team, to ask those questions and to be an advocate for yourself and your child. So I encourage you to stay curious and to have those conversations. But I also want to focus that vaccines are safe and that they are the best way to keep us all healthy, to keep us all safe, and to keep us all strong. And so it is so important to stay vaccinated and to keep up with those vaccination schedules, stay on track, and that, again, if you have questions, to call your healthcare provider. So I'm going to open it up, because I honestly have not been looking at the chat box to see if we have any questions from people who are on Zoom or from people who are on Facebook Live.
So far, so good. I'm not seeing any questions either. I think Natalie, I think that we can go ahead and wrap up this session because I'm not seeing questions in either place, but I do see some thanks for your time and your effort in putting together this presentation.
Perfect. I do just want to leave that, just so people are aware, I'm sure people know with COVID-19 that around the world right now, scientists and physicians are trialing different drugs and different ideas of how to help keep us safe against COVID-19. And so right now, obviously, we don't know if they will work, but we are hopeful that we will get some positive results very soon, and maybe even in a matter of months of what's going on. So vaccine testing protocols are going on right now for COVID-19. And again, if you have questions about keeping your child on track for their vaccine schedule, to call your healthcare provider, stay curious, ask those questions.
Thank you, Natalie, for sharing all of this great information. I think that it is a topic that is timely, first of all, because of all that's going on right now, but also just as a reminder that there are some things that just need to continue as normal, and vaccinations are certainly one of those things. So we thank everyone for joining us today. We will be back on Thursday with our next session of Family and Consumer Sciences at Home, and we hope that you'll join us at 11 a.m. And so now, maybe. Well, I thought I was going to wrap us up, but it doesn't seem to want to work that way today. So maybe it will work. Thank you all for your time.
Family and Consumer Sciences Extension at the University of Kentucky. Our agents share research knowledge with individuals, families, and communities to improve quality of life. Building strong families, building Kentucky. It starts with us.